order at 9:32 a.m. We will begin. Roll call.
Nelson,
Here.
Gingell is absent with notice. Gershenson,
Here.
Lubes.
Here.
Tubb,
Here.
Quarles.
Here. Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence for the Honorable Damon Keith. Thank you, and I'm sure everyone knows that Judge Keith played a very instrumental role in our state and our nation, and his services are today. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the previous meeting? If not, we'll need a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Commissioner Thomas, supported by Commissioner Nelson. Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The agenda. There are a couple changes to the agenda as printed. We will be removing item 2, miscellaneous resolution 19-122. One of the issues is we will need to see the financial impact so we can discuss this fully. And we should have that at our next meeting, so I'm moving it to the next meeting.
I'll move that. I have questions.
Okay. Commissioner Tom is moving it, is there support? And supported by Commissioner Gershenson.
Will we also have the report, I think Nancy, you and Marcia would remember, our new members would not. Our HR department embarked on a report that was well over $100,000, as I recall, to study every single solitary position in this county. And it started, I think, 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So I would like to know if we're going to be able to have that report as well, because I think it's important, for all you know, and we don't know, okay, for all we know, job descriptions have been changed and salaries have been changed, upward, downward, maybe 2 positions have been put together. I'm just making this up. I don't know what they've done. But this was it hadn't been done since the 80s, as I recall. And so I think it's important for us also to take a look at that, because they did hire an outside firm to work with them. It wasn't just us in the county. And every person who worked here in this county was contacted and their job descriptions gone over and so on. So I think it's important before we do anything else. For all we know, the minimum wage here may be $40 an hour. I'm just joking. I think Jordy's having a heart attack, but I'm being silly. But of course, you know, we need to know that as well. So if it's at all possible, I really would appreciate having an update on that as well when you follow up with the fiscal impact of all this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and the request I'll go in for you, Commissioner Tom. And the second a change to the agenda will be a walk-on item. It is and I think everyone has a copy of this resolution, policy for banner display on county structure. I would like to add that to the agenda as item number 4. Item number 4. Now, may I get support for the agenda with the additions and changes?
You want to write that first motion to everything?
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll take the motion that Commissioner Todd moved and supported by Commissioner Gersson, as well as the motion for the banner display moved by Commissioner Nelson and supported by Commissioner Gersson. All in favor of approval of the agenda with the addition and corrections, say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, same sign, please. The agenda has been accepted. And on that note, we'll move to item number 1, which is, oh, excuse me, public comment. Anyone from the public that wants to bring anything forward? Okay. Okay.
I just would like to introduce the committee. We've got our new supervisor of employee benefits here with us today. This is Andra Panfel. She's our new supervisor. Tina Ramey was the supervisor, you might recall, from years past. She retired in the fall. And Andy's here. We hired her from the outside, and she brings a wealth of experience. She's worked for schools, primarily schools, but and other government entities. So we're very happy to have her.
No, thank you and welcome. Any other comments? Communications? We don't have any today. Now moving to the regular agenda. Item number 1, Human Resource Department resolution to exempt Oakland County government from PA 152 of 2011 for calendar year 2020. We'll move by Commissioner Todd, supported by Commissioner Law. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Hain. I'm the HR manager over the benefits division in HR. And before you today is a resolution for calendar year 2020, and it's for the county to opt out of the state of Michigan PA 152 that was enacted in 2011. Now this is there's an option in this bill. The bill provided for public employers had 3 options regarding employee benefits. At the time, it was to either not pay more than 80% of the cost of employee benefits, or not pay more than a cap amount annually that's set by the state of Michigan, or the various public entities could opt out. But if they elected to opt out, they could only opt out for 1 year at a time. And so the county has been opting out ever since 2012. But this we have to look at it every year, go over all the details, kind of assess where we're at with it, which we have done this year again. And at this point, the county executive is recommending to opt out for 1 more year, which means for employees that the employee contributions that they pay biweekly towards their medical benefits will just remain the same for 2020. If we weren't recommending to opt out, the employee benefit contributions would have to go up, actually quite a bit. So at this point, we're recommending that we opt out for 1 more year.
Commissioner Gershon.
Thanks for explaining it in regular language. I appreciate that. But I'm a little confused when you say 1 more year. So do you mean that just in reference to the fact that we have to look at it every year? Or are you
Yes.
saying that there may be a change in 1 more year?
No, I was just referring
Okay.
that we can only opt out for 1 year. We can't just say, well, we're gonna opt out from now till forever. We'll be back in a year.
And has anything significantly changed from when you made the decision last year to making it this year?
Not really. The expenses for the medical plan, because we're primarily self-funded as opposed to paying insurance premiums. So because we're self-funded, you know, like from month to month, the expense can go up and down. But that's normal for self-insured plans. So, but other than that, no, nothing has really changed.
Any other questions? You do a roll call, please.
Nelson,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Lubes,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to item number 2. Yeah, I'll call it 2, excuse me. Item number 3, update, legislative.
I know they're grinning because Michigan lost their basketball coach, but I'm not gonna say that anymore.
Not me.
Well, he doesn't care. I do.
Good morning. Just wanted to give you a update on some of the issues that we've been working on and monitoring in Lansing since the last time we spoke. The first of those being the Raise the Age legislation. As you know, there was a House package and there was a Senate package moving through the committees a month ago. Both the House and the Senate have passed their version of the legislation. The chairs of each of the judiciary committees in the House and the Senate have gotten together, and they're negotiating now who will get the final bills and what the final versions will be. The one outstanding debate left is, as usual, funding. There's a number of plans on the table, one by the Senate, one by the House. It appears as if, through my conversations with Senator Lucido, who's the Senate chair, he's likely to go along with the House version that will deal on reimbursing the county's child care fund when we change the age of an adult from 17 to 18. We don't really know what that number is going to be because we don't know how many 17-year-olds are going to be in the system, so what the House version did is it added a 2-year study to be conducted by DHHS to monitor these individuals, who's paying for them, whether it's a split between Department of Corrections, the State Department of Corrections, and the County Child Care Fund. So I would assume, I'm told that the plan is to move these bills out in the next couple weeks and send them to the governor at their final version. What it's gonna be, we just don't know yet, so. The debate, as I said, rests on who's paying for the money. But for the first 2 years of the monitoring, the legislation says that the counties will be reimbursed 100%. However, we've seen that language before in reimbursement to the child care fund, and so we don't have a lot of confidence that that will be the case. So that's issue number 1. If there's any questions, please feel free to stop me. And
Yes, Jim, do you know where,
Tom.
I'm sorry. Jim, do you know where MAC is on this?
well, it might sound silly to you, but MAC supports what they call the 68% reimbursement and
Okay.
are opposed to I shouldn't say opposed, they prefer the 68% reimbursement to the fund as opposed to the 100%. Obviously, 100% sounds better, but most of the counties feel that right now it's a 50-50 split, and MAC was pushing for a 68% reimbursement level
Forever,
yes.
yeah.
However long forever is in the legislature, so. I don't think, if I had to guess today, I don't think the counties are gonna get the 68%. I think it's gonna be the 100%, and then the department will determine what exactly does the 100% cover.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the other issue, as you know, we've been working feverishly on appropriations for the Oakland County breakfast program. It's a program in which we are a public-private partner with the United Way. United Way, Kyle from United Way has been going to a number of meetings with me, with legislators the last couple weeks. We feel very good about this. As you know, the county put in $500,000, and we're asking the state to put in a $500,000 commitment, $135,000 a year for 3 years, which ultimately would draw down $12 million in federal funds for this program. If we can get this, it's gonna be, we believe it's gonna be a great thing for the county. One of the problems that we're faced with is everybody that we share our program with, every member of the legislature is like, well, I wanna do it in my county. Well, go right ahead, but we already are locked and loaded, we have the thing in place, we need this money. So, and use us as kind of like a pilot project, watch how successful we are, and then you can do it. So in talking with the appropriations members and the chair of the Propes, we're feeling good right now. The way the budgets work, they're coming out of committee onto the Senate and onto the House floor, but we obviously have targets to go and a lot more work to do on the budgets, but as of right now, the feeling is good. I don't want to jinx it, but I think it looks good for us. And we've had our entire delegation in Oakland County very strongly going to the members of the appropriation in support of our committee. So when you see your members of the House and Senate, thank them because they're really pushing hard for this as well.
Okay. Commissioner Gershison?
Well, thanks for your work on this, and I know it is a bipartisan effort, so that's comforting. The $12 million return, proposed return, is that after the 3 years? And does that money go directly to the schools, or
It's throughout that period of time.
throughout the period?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. And it doesn't go to the schools, no. It actually goes to the United Way to train school employees
Okay.
and to purchase equipment. One of the pieces of equipment that they have been doing in the county, and maybe you've seen it in your districts, is bringing in these temporary food carts and putting them right at the entrance of the schools, so that kids just on their way can reach in and grab a breakfast burrito and go, instead of having to line up in the basement cafeteria in the morning. It's just not effective. So, yeah, the United Way is really gonna monitor and administer the program.
well, in their research on getting rid of the stigma of those kids that have to go into a certain line or have a certain card, this is open to anybody
This
that gets
totally
off the
eliminates
bus.
that, yes, that's huge.
It's an amazing program,
It is,
and
yes.
so we appreciate your help getting this funding in place.
And the only other thing we're monitoring is obviously county revenue sharing.
You
is-
have one more question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, but
Oh,
before.
no, I,
Just a moment. But before we proceed, I apologize, I forgot to introduce Tyrone Saunders, who's also with PAA.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You want to go ahead now?
Yeah, actually, that was perfect timing, because I'm gonna hand it off to Ty right now.
Madam Chair, Honorable Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. A couple of things that I'm going to cover are just to give you a sense of something that's going to have some pretty significant benefits and/or ramifications, depending on how you look at it, for your constituents, and that is the insurance reform, no-fault reform debate that's going on right now in Lansing. I'm sure many of you saw a lot of the headlines last week. Both the House and the Senate moved their versions of the insurance reform package. And, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call them bipartisan. However, there were members of the Democratic Party that voted with the majority Republican caucus. It was made known by the governor that she has the intention of vetoing either of the versions that were able to pass the House and Senate last week if they got to her desk in the form that they exist today. A couple of key differences between the House and the Senate approach. Both bills actually, well, let's talk about the Senate version for a minute. The Senate version actually includes a prohibition, and this is where the Democrats that voted for it came on board, a prohibition against rate making based on non-insurance factors. So things like where you live, what your credit score may happen to be. It also eliminated the ability to rate based on gender as well. And so the two Democrats that voted with the majority Senate caucus actually voted because they included those two things. Now, in the Senate version, there were not automatic rate rollbacks up front. However, there were rate rollbacks based on customers selecting higher or lower PIP coverage, personal injury protection coverage. And so depending upon the amount that they selected, and right now, as I think everybody knows, it's actually an unlimited benefit. So they could actually accept certain limits, and there would be a rate reduction based on what limit they actually selected. One of the key provisions that was different between the House and Senate version, and this was actually included in the House version, which was a fee schedule. And that would be, so if in fact someone had a claim, hospitals would only be able to charge up to whatever that fee schedule happened to outline. The House also did not include the ability to rate based on non-insurance factors. However, they did include rate rollbacks, automatic rate rollbacks. So there were some Democrats that voted with the Senate or the House majority on that bill. Right now, those bills seem headed for conference. I suspect that there'll be some action in the Senate on the House version probably tomorrow, if not Wednesday. I know the Senate is actually doing budgets. Budget votes beginning tomorrow, so they may wait and do it on Thursday. But there will be some action on the House version of the bill on this week in the Senate. So there'll continue to be some negotiations on that. I don't know whether there'll be a meeting of the mind with the governor or not. It's likely going to be a showdown with the governor, and she may very well veto the bill, which, again, some would view as very unfortunate. Any questions on that? Okay, the other issue that I wanted to give you guys an update on is the gerrymandering case. And so I think everybody's well aware that the U.S. District Court actually found that there were multiple congressional and state legislative districts that were gerrymandered to benefit Republicans, and the state was ordered by August 1st of this year to actually redraw those lines. However, there was a request to the U.S. District Court of Appeals to actually for a stay, and that stay was based on the fact that there are a couple of other states that are before the U.S. Supreme Court right now, North Carolina being one, for similar fact patterns. So they are before the Supreme Court on the very same rationale behind what the facts of the case that the Michigan lines were actually overturned. So they're saying that if the Supreme Court acts, that could very well have some drastic ramifications on that process of redrawing the line. So if they do it by August and we have an election, that they may actually have already redrawn the lines based on the Supreme Court acting. So they're asking for a stay right now with the U.S. Court of Appeals. Whether, this just happened on Friday, so whether or not there's going to, the stay is gonna be granted, which it very well likely may be. We have no idea, but obviously, if it's not, then the state is under obligation to move forward with redrawing those lines on August 1st, which certainly is going to have some huge ramifications on any future congressional and state legislative races.
One question that I have, if for some reason the lines have to be redrawn, will Michigan be drawn with the 14 districts that we have in place today?
Yes.
And the same holds true for, of course, will hold true for the House and the.
Yes.
Okay.
So now, how do we, people who are in the Senate now, okay, are only allowed by state law to run twice for the Senate. So that would mean that they could not run for the redrawn seats. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I have
I'm
not thought
asking the
about
question.
that, Commissioner Taub, but that is a very, that's a very good, good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So there would be an election held, I don't know, August and I don't know when, but those sitting senators will not get their 2 full 4-year terms. They'll just have 6 years as opposed to, because I think the language says that. And then I have another question, if I may. When will the budget go to the governor? Do you know? I'm just asking.
Before October 1st.
Yeah, I think, as I think everybody knows, it's been well reported that the governor and her number one priority is the passage of a 45% gas tax increase. She believes that that's necessary to fund the $2.5 billion in additional resources that we need for the roads. And she is making this really a non-negotiable part of any budget negotiations. As a matter of fact, she's making it a non-negotiable part of signing any bill that seems to be a priority of the GOP. So I think that we may very well look up and many of those budgets are not done. My hope is that that's not the case, but we could very well be moving towards a potential government shutdown if those budgets are not adopted before October 1. And if you remember back when Jennifer Granholm was governor and we had a GOP majority in both the House and Senate, we did have 2 shutdowns, even while brief. There were 2 shutdowns because there was an impasse reached on the budget. So our hope is that they will learn from the past and sit down at the negotiating table. But I wish we had a crystal ball to see what that was going to ultimately look like.
So my question is not when will the governor, or if the governor will sign this. My question is, when will they all be ready to go to her before June 1st? And then there's negotiate, or no?
The answer to that question is budgets are moving. Like I said, the Senate is voting on their budgets tomorrow and Wednesday. So those will be over in the House, and you know what the process is from there. They'll have to go through committee and be voted on before the full House. The schedule on the House budgets is not looking like they're going to move theirs until next week.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, but the legislative goal has always been to ensure that their budgets were out, similar to what they've been out the last 8 years under Rick Schneider, is to have the process done before the legislature recesses at the end of June.
Right, okay.
The Constitution requires the governor to sign the budgets by October 1. But the legislature and the governor are taking positions currently that it's going to be an extended discussion throughout the summer. As Tyrone said, we've been finishing the budgets typically right around the 1st of June, the last 8 years. I think most of the budgets that are non-controversial will be done probably in June, but then there's going to be a couple laying around that are not going to be.
Transportation and what else?
It's typically DHHS, K-12, Transportation will likely be one of those, and potentially corrections.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wu.
A different subject, we're going to look at septic codes in Oakland County again. I know that was done previously, but we had some residents express concerns again, so checking in to see if there's anything you have to know about septic codes.
I've talked to Chris Ward about it, and I talked to the legislature, Jim Lauer, who's the chair of local government, who introduced it last year. He intends on reintroducing it again this year and beginning to hold work group meetings on that, because as you know, this is a lengthy, experience. So he has yet to introduce it. He's got other things that he's doing right now, but at some point, we're watching to see when it happens, and we'll let you know when it does.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Back to the sales tax increase. Is it gaining any momentum, or what's your perspective on it?
No. No. I think that the GOP's perspective on the gas tax increase is that they have already solved the issue. I think many people may not be aware, but when a comprehensive road package was voted on back in 2015, when they voted on it, the money was not supposed to begin flowing until 2019. However, over the course of the last 2 years, the roads have been in such bad condition that the legislature has appropriated dollars for the purpose of repairing the roads to the tune of $150 million last year. And so what the legislature, or at least what the Senate did in passing their transportation budget, was there was only supposed to be a 60% capture in year one, which would have been 2019. They actually gave a full capture, I think it's $200 million. So they gave a full capture this year instead of the 60% that was that was adopted back in 2015. So they believe that they have already fixed the issue, and that's why the line in the sand has been drawn. But there have been other third-party interest groups that have indicated that the problem was exacerbated by the fact that we weren't doing anything between 2015 and really 2018. And so because of that, the amount has increased. And so that's where the governor's saying we need $2.5 billion extra. And there have been some external third-party organizations that seem to agree with the governor. They may not necessarily agree to the numbers $2.5 billion, but they believe that it's over what the legislature felt the problem was back in 2015.
There's a likelihood that the legislature, the House and Senate, will say, we've passed transportation budgets this year that spend more money than ever before in history of Michigan on transportation and roads. And if the governor wants to veto it, then so be it. And a lot of communities aren't even bidding out projects this year because so many operating engineers, union guys, have moved down to Florida with their equipment and have been working down there for the last 15 years because we haven't been doing anything. So even if you came up with all this money, these companies would bid so high on it because they just don't have the employees or the equipment to manage the gigantic projects that would go out. So as we're hearing throughout the state and these local cities and townships and villages, we're not bidding out because we can do it next year for less, or we can do it on our own for less. We're not gonna do that, so it'll make for an interesting negotiation.
Yes, it will. Any further questions? Okay, well, as always, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, pleasure to be here.
Okay. Okay. See you next next month.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 4, the walk-on item. And it is Board of Commissioners policy for banner display on county structures. May I have a motion to move by Commissioner Gerson, supported by Commissioner Nelson? And it will be presented by Chris Ward and
Jody Hall.
Jody Hall. Will explain the policy and what brought this forth.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's real nice to hear about those state budget shutdowns again. That's when my hair turned gray, so. Nice on a Monday morning. So this policy, I thank you for putting this on your agenda and adding it this morning, and sorry for the very late notice. This came to us. We asked for this in a rush from Corporation Counsel, and Jody was very nice to put this together in a rush. So this came to you rather late because of that short time frame. So this policy is in response to our request as part of, I believe, the Suffragette Committee, the Women's Centennial of the Women's the 19th Amendment, passage of the 19th Amendment. Some of their efforts, the projects they're taking on. June the 10th will be 10th. On the June 10th of this year will be the centennial of the ratification of Michigan's ratification of the 19th Amendment. And I think that's where we're going to start with the flag. Well, then the 12th will be the announcement, I believe. I think. Is that correct?
Well, no, it's my understanding the flag will be lowered or raised, however it's going to happen on the 12th.
Okay.
but,
All right.
Yeah,
Either, okay.
yeah.
On the 10th is the centennial of the ratification. The flag will be up on the 12th. Thank you, Commissioner. But the genesis solved was the request of the Women's Suffrage Centennial Celebration Committee to hang a large flag on the West Wing Annex, as we do often with the large American flag. The administration requested a policy because these things can open the door to many different organizations once you put up, banners, different symbols. Sometimes other organizations will say, why not us? And there are sometimes organizations we don't want to necessarily have represent Oakland County. So Jody had already looked at this issue, I believe, before with another policy, and so that conversation had already been started, and so I'm going to turn it over to you.
So we drafted this policy to make sure that only county flags related to county governmental service or government services will be affixed to our buildings, consistent with other uses. And I did look at a couple of the zoning ordinances in a couple of municipalities on this, and it appears most of the time our banners would not be subject to zoning ordinances. So I don't really have it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if you have any other questions.
Yes, I have a question, and then Commissioner Todd has one as well. When I was reading through the policy, and it says that the policy will be sponsored by a county official.
The banner, you mean?
Yeah, excuse me, the banner will be, in the policy, it
Yeah.
says that the banner will be sponsored by a county official. So if I'm interpreting this correctly, and an official appointee elected can bring forth that they want to have a banner placed on the structure after filling out a form that will be designed and put in place by facilities.
Yep. Well, it just, if you look at the banner sponsor,
Where is that? Which
section D
D.
on page 2, but they may request a county official in performance of their service or function, their government service or function, may request to fix the banner. So the county official can only request to attach a banner to our facilities that relates to a government function or service, and that is defined in the statute in section 3E. And that definition comes right from, if you look 3E on page 1, it defines what governmental services or functions are. And that definition comes right from the governmental immunity statute for that. So a county official can only request to hang a banner for, related to their governmental functions or services.
Okay. Okay, let me just mull that over for a moment.
Yeah, that's fine. No.
Commissioner Tom?
Yes, in section G, you state that all banners must be of professional quality, I get that part, and made of materials, including affixation methods that will not damage county structures where they are to be displayed.
Correct.
But you do not state there or anywhere that should damage occur, it's up to the person who, or the official who, whoever places the banner to pay for that. It's kind of implied, but it's not stated. So, as an example, if we use the, as we have for years and years, the courthouse where the flag hangs, and a banner is put up there, and as an example, the wrong kind of paint is used. And so all of the marble or whatever it is called on the outside of the building gets stained with, with some kind of weird, we have rain, obviously, lots of rain, and the banner gets whatever. The banners are heavy. If they aren't secured properly, or there's a really bad windstorm, I think we need to state somewhere that, I know it's implied, but I think you need to state that it's the responsibility of the organization or the person placing the banner that they will pay for it, that the county is not, taxpayers are not gonna come up with the funding because you put up an icky banner.
Well, that's why we, only facilities is allowed to hang the banners. They're in charge of it. If you look at section, what section is it here? That talks about the request, facilities is going to, in section E, 4E, the location and the placement. Facilities is in charge of overseeing the control, coordination, and affixing the banners to the building. So only facilities will do it. And the banners are only related to county officials and county functions. So there'll be no other organizations, only Oakland County officials. So there's no other outside organizations that will be hanging banners from our facility.
Okay.
So it's only a county expense.
No costs associated
Yep,
with
and then all costs, if you look at C, all costs for affixing the banners, is to be paid for by the official through its county budget.
Okay,
So it's, if you look at C, it talks about the county official through its Oakland County budget shall be responsible to reimburse the Department of Facilities Management for all costs associated with affixing the banners to the structures. So that issue, is covered specifically.
so if facilities looks at a banner that's been prepared or whatever and says, holy cow, this is the wrong kind of ink or wrong kind of paint or whatever they put on it, then it's not gonna be hung.
Well, they'll have to work with them to figure it out. They're in charge of, facilities is in charge of our buildings, keeping them safe for us, so
What does a banner that size cost? Does anybody know?
I have no idea.
We can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
When, as your policy is written here, when there is a banner to be hung, and facility has gone through its process and its procedures, and approved that this is the banner, do they, in your policy, do you notify or let the Board of Commissioners or the administration know that on July 1st, there will be a banner that will be hung on the building from X group? Is there any notification? My question is there any notification from facilities that they will let the board or commission or administration know that you can expect to see a banner being hung by whatever organization before I drive up and see it hanging there?
Before, no, there's nothing in there about that. But I know facilities in other instances issues countywide bulletins, you know,
Oh, okay.
on the banners.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll? Thank you.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Luce,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes,
Nelson,
Yes.
Quarles.
Yes. Yeah, motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks for your work on this.
Oh, no problem.
Any other business? Any new business? Therefore, I will call the meeting adjourned.